When we start talking about kids and we talk about ADHD right now is kind of used the way heart disease is used as a term. It's like a catch-all, it's really so general and does not take into account some of the nuances of why is a kid having difficulties. Are they having those difficulties in all of the same contexts, or does it change? So we talk about, a child, particularly boys, at around 10 or 11. Neurologically, something very unique is happening in the brain. It's one of 3 times in the brain when the neurons are actually unwiring and then rewire again, right? So that they literally come apart and then they start to reform. And this is the age where you see a child who suddenly is into one thing for 6 weeks and then they let go and then they're into something else. They're doing one thing, but it's because the brain is literally letting go of things and then trying everything new, different experiences, different instruments, different languages, so on and so forth, and then kind of coming back together again as it starts to form its new identity. So this is often the time when, if you think back to times that you learned a language or you learned an instrument or something like that, it's usually right around that age, because that's when all of that is starting to reform. But that can also appear as someone who's not paying attention or who is having difficulty kind of figuring out, what they're doing or what they're into. And so, as well as they can be aware of that dynamic. And as I was talking about the anxiety, that alone can cause a bunch of issues that can mask as some kind of deficiency. So what I really work on is helping them understand what's going on for them. And just that bit of information about yourself can be extremely empowering. So I can look at body language, I can look at the words we're using. For example, Paula, I know for a fact you're probably right-handed. Are you?
Yeah.
Yes, you're right-handed. And I can also tell that for you, when you think about time, you tend to think of the past as being to the left side of your head and it's a little bit behind you. And then when you think about the future, you think of it being to the right and it's kind of in front of you. Probably, I would assume that you see problems as being over there to the left and you probably see solutions as being to the right. Yeah, and so I can see how you're gesturing and how you're processing information. And so when you tell a kid, here's something unique about you, here's the way your brain works, then all of a sudden they start to get a new type of confidence. And so that amygdala response, that hijacking, where they get the deer in the headlight types of anxiety, where they can't think straight and they feel on stage, dials down. And then they start to feel more of a confidence. They start to feel better about themselves and become more aware, and they're able to vocalize what their needs are. So it's sometimes as simple, if a kid is visually processing creativity to the right and analytics to the left, and they're in a math class where they're sitting on the left-hand side of the teacher, every math problem they're seeing on the board is in their creative space. They're having a harder time actually trying to solve that. And if you literally just put them on the other side of the room, when they look at that math problem, it'll come to them right away. So just knowing that is incredibly empowering for them. And then it says, okay, so what is the actual diagnosis that we're dealing with here? What's really the challenge that we're dealing with? That doesn't mean that there's not a medical diagnosis, but it means that it's not as simple and one-dimensional as just saying they need a 504 and they need to take this pill,